Let's start the day with 3 characters example. Let's consider this character, just as plain as she is for now. What would be her goal? Which goal can you guess? Which goal would you attribute her just from her appearance? Which behavior trait would you give her? Which kind of interest would she have? Where would she come from? All the essential question you could ask yourself when it comes to character creation. Ask them to this character. Ask them directly. Where do you come from? What are you interested by? With what kind of people would you like to associate? This character, as it is now, is plain. It can be anything. The character has been deliberately left blank. You could add any accessories to this character. You can add any quirks to this character. All you can say for now is that this character is a humanoid. You're not exactly sure which species it is, or what kind of function or role it would have in the story. You can only say that it has a face and a head. The character's proportions, the body type, all of that is unknown for now. You can't be left to too many biases. All you can suspect for now is that this character may see, may smell, and may speak eventually. But you can already make use of that to create a character from so very little. You can expect this character to have a level of at least human sapience or human sentience. You can imagine that this character has some form of comparable emotions to humans, and that she will use these emotions to orient her actions. Now let's give her one strength and one weakness. This character is devoted. Devoted to her goal, devoted to her team. That's her main strength. That's what makes her attractive. For a team, for an organization, for the public. This character will always follow her goal. She will support her team. That's her main strength. The main counterpart to this devotion is her sacrificial nature. Now, sacrificial here means that she's able to sacrifice herself to many extent, and it depends on the scale you want to go in, for her goal and her team. Same thing. So it's really a direct counterpart. Now, which kind of character is that? Which kind of function should she have in your story? Should she be the protagonist? Should she be the antagonist? Should she be a supporter of either of these sides? Which role would she have? We'll get deeper into role later, but for now, know that devoted and sacrificial are 2 behavior traits often attributed to leaders. Now, what would make this character a suitable leader? Wherever she is an antagonist or a protagonist. At this stage, we clearly separate function and role, and in the long run, we'll always want to separate a function and a role. But now, let's be clear for that. Function here, the 3 types of main functions will be protagonist, antagonist, and support. There will be other functions like deuteragonist, triagonist that we'll treat later, but for now, it's just protagonist, antagonist, and support. So, which function should she have? Knowing that she has the traits to occupy the role of leader. Or at least she has 2 out of 4 traits. Let's get deeper into the character creation. Now, let's suppose her goal, in its nature, is achievement. She wishes to achieve her goal, the goal of her team member, and potentially the goal of her organization, her country, her city, and so on. The goal of this character is to achieve and to help others to achieve. Again, that's the kind of motivation that a leader role would have. Now, let's try to imagine how would this character evolve. At the beginning of the story, what does she want and what does she need? In the middle of the story, what does she want and what does she need? At the end of the story, what does she want and what does she need? Again, skills, habit, time consumption, and motivation. You take your main character, you take your protagonist, and you ask her this question. What do you want and what do you need in terms of skills, in terms of habits, in terms of time frame, and in terms of motivation? And this way, you'll be able to predict how she will evolve. Now, let's try it for this character. Now, you've ended your first book, you've ended your first story, and you're writing a sequel. You become attached to this character, to your protagonist. And you've decided to make her evolve. Now, how did she evolve? Note that her main strength, devoted, hasn't changed. No, it has been preserved and reinforced by your first story. Your character has been through multiple trials, and these trials have changed her. For example, the character is no longer sacrificial. She is now providing, meaning that she will still help others to achieve her goal. And that includes herself, but not to the point where it could hinder her. She's still willing to achieve her goals, and one of her goals is to help others to achieve theirs, but she will only provide resources as long as it's beneficial for her, or as long as it is not detrimental for her. So the characters have recognized her weakness, she's begun to own it, and now she has changed it to make it something more valuable for herself and more valuable for others in the long run. The character's multiple encounters, mainly the encounters with her teammates, have made her an individualist. Now, note that individualist does not mean a selfish character. It means a character which is able to recognize the value of individuals much more. In this manner, she's able to recognize her own value much more, and how she will be able to contribute to the collective, to the team, to the organization in the long run if she preserves herself. Which is why she is now no longer sacrificial but providing. She helps others, but she doesn't, not to her own detriment. Because if she acts, she now understood that if she acts into her own detriment, it would be detrimental for the collective as well. That multiple encounters of the character have also made her more empathetic. Now remark that empathetic here is meant to be complementary to individualistic. The fact that the character can now realize that individuals have potentially more value than the collective have made her more aware of the diversity of the character she will meet. So she is more mentally flexible. She has more capability to identify which character needs which resources and wants which resources. So the individualist behavior trait directly supports the empathetic behavior trait. These changes, the reinforcement of devoted, the change of sacrificial into providing, the apparition of individualist and empathetic, all support one goal, achievement. All these changes are made to make the character more capable of achieving her goals. If you go back and forth between the original version and the potentially final version of the character, you realize that most traits are already available at the beginning of the story. For example, the sight of the character, the way as which she looks at the world in a very literal manner, is here since the beginning. Her eyes haven't changed much. It's something you want to apply to your protagonist in your early projects, because it creates a greater sense of continuity, or maybe it creates the continuity in an easier manner. If you want to create a character which changes a lot, and with these two appearances, you can consider that the character has changed a lot. The character has now a garment. You can see the whole picture, but you can imagine that in the original picture, since the character didn't have any form of hair accessory, didn't have any form of jewels or colors here, the character may have had a very simple clothing to go with, to match this appearance, and very little clothing. Whereas in the final version, the character may be wearing robes, she may be wearing an armor, maybe, to match her new function. You always want to consider the transition between the original state and the final state, and you are in charge of this transition. Remember, these characters in your early projects, they're part of you. So you decide in the original form which part will be preserved, which parts will be removed, and which parts will be added.